So today very good weather, sunny. So after such a long time, then you see sun. It's so beautiful, isn't it? So normally sun every day, then you won't appreciate that. So like this, we need to find Dharma like that. So somehow the teachings, you feel like, I know it, it's there, not much appreciation. But somehow, when you see the darkness or how this ignorance or self-grasping becomes so relevant, so serious business in your life, it becomes so personal matter. And then you wanted to get away from that. You wanted to see some light. And then you start appreciating the Dharma. 다 가르치어도 now couldn't remember so many things now. 다 안그란조 최 세야디 조 심교가 되고도 세야디 다 최기 된 조로도 직착거래 제장하다 심교가 대비할라 저기 주주 먹보니 심교가 타야야 다 민다 송구요래데 다 당당한 저기 체벌주의 중대기 나로네 다 단다데 된저 양화 준이 주고도 송제 아니 고조도양 된제 야고지 통배이나 아니 된중게 된제기 남샤 야고지 통보 된중 참어디 된제 참여 남샤 야고지 시험배이나 아니 된중 라베 남샤 시험이지다 된중 라베 남샤 야고 시험도 준비 아니 디슈울 디께 초르 세메데라 냐바지 개원도 준비 디록중디체 다 록도 디레 원도 준비 대다 디메바 쇠발라 디메바 쇠 지게 단다 답변 된저 양라 중인 타만나노니 아니 것이 지르비 된저 그도 레베나 아니 것이 지르비 된저 디레야라 깨와메버서고도스 깨와메버서 아니 가르서고서는 주버 시바메버서고 주버 시바데 간자 아니 렘바메버서고도 아니 시바메버서고도 방전이야로 실레원도 잠베 신에 아니 단다 겨워를 묻지 등연직 줄다.
And so starting out by thinking about what the Dharma is, what's the purpose of the Dharma, what is the Dharma? The Dharma is something which is to transform our minds. And in terms of this, using Dharma to transform our minds, then all of the many different religious traditions have a sort of explanations about how to use the teachings of their tradition to transform their minds, to transform people's minds. And so here in this particular sort of text and context in which we're studying here in relation to the 12 links of dependent origination, then as I explained earlier, that in order to first of all we have to try and get a very good understanding of the subtle level of dependent origination, the subtle way in which things dependently relate to each other, and then from that subtle understanding of the dependent relation and dependent origination of phenomena, then we then we can understand. Then when we approach this slightly sort of coarser level of dependent origination, in the sense that what we're talking about here in the 12 links, where ignorance and the and looking at the way that the process of the 12 links works, the way in which each of the links arises in connection to each other, which is on a slightly sort of coarser level of explanation of dependent relation, but based in this deeper, subtler level. And then we see how the process of the way in which the 12 links works, and understanding, the forward kind of process, in way in which we engage through the process, going from ignorance all the way around to the last link of aging and death, and then seeing that we need to stop this process, to reverse this process, and to eliminate, and then understanding that, for instance, to going to the last link of eliminating aging and death, then we have to eliminate the link before it of birth, and then to eliminate that, we have to eliminate the link before it of existence. And so looking at it in the sort of reverse, the way of reversing that process of the 12 links, so stopping the prior links from arising. So this so we have the sort of way in which the forward way, and then looking at the way that we reverse this process by eliminating the prior links.
제상과 덴제 루중단 루도기 남샤디 야고 셴발라 denshiki namshadi xian goya chikche yawram chigi tanda de bindu juding sunde ge tama de le doa
no
je zanga ani denba shigi ninshu namshadi yago xian kari yungure sedu zambe denje lujung dang ludo gona kwa dang yago xian ure di denshi yago jigi xian ba de kande sogor sedu ani shi ni ju denba ni de yago xian ure ta shi ni ju gi denba ni de ma xian ba yin den바 시기 니즈라 가수 장바 이나양 아니 코 그래서 그래 코와 주도기 르바디 딱다지 되고요 말봐 어디 내가 좀 보시다 송고도가
and so in order to sort of understand these sort of forward progression of the 12 links, and then the way and the process in which we would reverse these 12 links, and to know those processes very well, it's extremely important to have a good understanding of the Four Noble Truths. And as His Holiness states in the verse, one of the verses at the end of the prayer to the 17 Nalanda scholars, where he talks about how the purpose of understanding the Four Noble Truths is in order to apply that to understanding the process of particularly of the 12 links of dependent origination, and the way in which we sort of engage in the samsaric process, or we and then reverse it. And then in that prayer, what he says is that we, in order to have a good understanding of the Four Noble Truths, you have to understand the base of that, which is the two truths. So we have to be grounded in a very good understanding of the truths. And if we don't have that grounding in the two truths, then however much we sort of think about and contemplate the Four Noble Truths, it's not going to help us to get a complete understanding of the process that we're talking about here.
제장가 덴바니기 니즈디 자침부 차야디 간드차고도 슬람나 마란 졸이야 덴바니기 니즈데당 진당 오조 제베 로지 마란 졸이야 예예비체 딜라 때니 아니 denshiji kowa jugdodi chema shimba cheche 아니 단동양 지게 예 가르쳐고래 미기 대원 되전 띠무베 랑게 대원 자더라 좀 세제마 치용해야지 다 대반 얘기니 좀 마심바 되기.
So in terms of why is this point being made here, that it's so crucial, so important that we understand the two truths? Why do we have to have such a good understanding of those? Because our sort of the way that we in our sort of mental states, we have the direct opposites of the minds which sort of apprehend or grasp in a direct opposite way to what is explained in the two truths about the understanding of reality. And then on the basis of that those completely mistaken inverted kind of graspings, then the process of how the four, particularly how the Four Noble Truths works, and the way that we then can engage in the process of creating samsara, that comes. So when it says in Shantideva that when Shantideva says, although beings wish for happiness, they rush towards things which and destroy their own happiness like their own enemies. So this is a line from Shantideva. So in this way, through not understanding the two truths and therefore a misunderstanding of the four truths, we destroy our own happiness through this misunderstanding.
Tadi indu chambe jezanga ngar gyagal ya ani nalente chuju zimba zogu songjo nambe kabla pejen pemoje demba nigi namshade ma songje ani shine jige 가서래 텔레데니 아니 퍼진기 남샤 텔레데니 오메 남샤 야도 저제 영향지 레도가스.
And so then I think in India, those holders of the sort of Nalanda tradition, the way that they gave teachings, I think was really most of the teachings would be given on the subject of the two truths, and then later from that other explanations, such as the explanations in terms of Prajnaparamita, the perfection of wisdom, or the middle way Madhyamaka teachings would come. But the basis or the focus of their teachings would be teaching on the two truths.
가서 딱시실라세 도저기 지금 갔다가 저 비게 랍데오 손로디 깨라 전부 차야 돼. 아니 다 유니버시티 당부도 쓰고 봐. 이 쪼디 말한저 당매 등야게 쳐도 다 임베 세부시부래도 왔어.
So these great sort of a little bit like schools, more like a sort of, we could say like a university, some of the first universities, such as Nalanda and Takshila, their sort of main focus of teaching would have been selflessness, teaching about selflessness.
When Adisha was invited to Tibet, he has a strong wish to give the same teaching, starting on the two truths, and then leading to the how to get out of samsara and so on. And then maybe he already did that, but then the people in Tibet, so much faith is there, but then they are not really ready to get the essence of the teaching. And then for that reason, because how the Tibetan people's mind works, and that Kalapa Tsenshab, Yeshiva Tsenshab, who invited him to Tibet, so he requested and said, please give the teaching according to the Tibetan's way of thinking. Just for that reason, when this beautiful text, the Karsa Lemma Path, the Lemma Path, when some of the students in India saw this great text, and then say, wow, now first we are quite sad that Adisha went to Tibet, but now we are so fortunate that to have this great text, because Choji went into Tibet. If Choji is still here, he will not give this kind of teaching to us. And we are so fortunate. But then at the same time, they say, Now we can say the Tibetans people are quite lazy. So why lazy? Because at that time the Nalanda students, they know that giving the teaching, starting from teaching the Lama is important, and then talking about the law of causality and the hell and all this on, it is not an easy subject. It is so difficult subject. And but Tibetan people, so much faith is there already, so that it becomes like a base. So if they talk about hell, they just go like, oh, right, oh, they go like that. It's not like they don't, like, what is this talking about? So it is kind of the mind of the faith still very strongly there. But this is kind of, if with respect to the Tibetan at that time, very not strong enough. Look at the Chandrakirti's way of teaching, Nagarjuna's way of teaching. All the Nalanda Panditas, they will never talk about that in the beginning. Also, they will never make a homage in the kind of beginning of the text. Look at the Nagarjuna's homage. He make a homage to the emptiness. And the Chandrakirti, entering to the middle way, he makes homage to the compassion. At the end, then the Nagarjuna, he will make a homage to the Buddha. Because this helped me, because this really helped change my life, now I make a homage to you. And for that reason, I think His Holiness said, with the faith and doing rituals and doing some kind of obstacle remover, all these things, good, but no guarantee having this kind of faith and holding this kind of lineage, how long the Buddha Dharma will last. I cannot guarantee that. Maybe next generation it might disappear. But I guarantee you, His Holiness said, if way of the Nalanda's way of studying this, then definitely few more generations guarantee it will stay. So that's His Holiness said this. There has some huge reason there. So now, next generation, that generation, now first you need to talk to ourselves. Whether, because we are witnessing the both instances.
Yes, both
situations.
Both situations.
So we have most of us, like when I come into this store, be honest, because now we share the top quality of Dharma, and somehow we have a special connection. So when I come through this, you all bow down and with the kata, with this, so much respect showing. But it's great that you are showing respect to the Dharma, not me actually. But then it comes down to the why you are bowing down. So what you have seen in me, what you have not on me, what you have seen in Dharma, that you are bowing so much, making prostrations. Then it will be a very difficult question for you all. Right? So, for that reason, now at the end of our destination, okay, so the rest of your life you make lots of faith, so mantras, and we have witnessed at the time of death, people go so freaked out and so much fear. Even he practiced a lot. That time how much he has offered money to his guru. Or maybe he made such a great contribution to the monasteries, for monks, to do a puja. But still, his mind is his mind. If he cannot protect himself or myself, and that becomes only a condition, not the cause. So, and then Buddha himself said, he gave a guarantee, kind of in a sutra, saying, me putting my hand on you will not solve the problem or the suffering or the cause of the suffering. And doing some kind of a purification, going to the river Gangas or something, doing that, it will not. But what will really help you is see the reality. Reality, seeing the reality only will help you to go away the grasping or the fear. So that is very powerful, actually. And in order to bring this kind of a confidence in your life and all sort of other the activities, Dharma activities you do, go for it. But sometimes what we do is like, oh, these two truths are so confusing, and Four Noble Truths are so confusing. Better to do some commitments and do some retreat. So that we should really ask ourselves, who are you fooling? That you fooling yourself, actually, ourselves. So, most important now, because now only 2 days left. I just, this morning when I counted, only 2 days left to spend the time with the boring person like me. So, we need to be honest to each other. So, maybe as a formality of the teaching, you have to bow down with the kata and all so on. It's okay, it's good. But for my kind of a case, even you want to come to see me, maybe no need kata, no need envelope, but just sit down and talk more with me. Whatever you wanted to ask, maybe you want to give me advice, whatever. That will be more to build a bond between. Not like first come with the kata and the envelope, and then second you didn't get anything, didn't feel anything, and then you will not say that person is wrong or he is not qualified, but automatically we have a human behavior, just strange saying like, Dharma didn't help me, but not finding the right Dharma. Then you will say, I got this, met this teacher, and this Dharma didn't help me. The curious, being honest to yourself, maybe this teacher is wrong. Maybe something, what kind of Dharma that he is trying to prove, maybe it's something I couldn't feel this. So I need to really know what that is. So we need to, now my English is getting terrible. So that so also, as I said, now only 2 days left. So tomorrow, somehow we will finish the text, the 26th chapter, and then now it looks a little difficult to start with the 18th chapter, but then also we don't have the
translation
translation
of clear words
of the 18th chapter yet. But then today I will try to make it short and take out some essence summary.
Make a short summary of the points.
Summary, and then I will try to make it simple, even it's so profound, simple and easy to understand, ready to eat.
I'll make it difficult.
So then it will be complete. Yeah. Okay. That in the Hindu Zambe, Maranzo Nyandia Kadu Yimbi Nayang, that Maranzo Kumshik Narola, any Lagakari Chigineri, in Churkan Chigineri, Chur the serious chair the Kachmuchishas.
And so, before looking at the text, then we have to it's important for us to look at the sort of the ways that are sort of habits, the sort of things that we're familiar with and the habitual ways that we do things. And in terms of whatever we do, but specifically in relation to the Dharma, we need to have a sincere attitude in terms of how we, the ways in which we approach the Dharma.
One time in the Tibetan village schools, right? TCV.
Yes, Tibetan village school.
Then in there, His Holiness visited there and gave a teaching, and then from the audience, a young boy asked a question to His Holiness and said, "If our life is going through a very pleasant time, and feel like everything what I need is there, then do I still need to do a Dharma practice?" And because he speaks in a typical this TCB language, they have this. His Holiness sometimes hard to get that. Yeah. So one Gishila was translating for him, and then I could understand, and then I thought like, now His Holiness said, of course you need to, and then, but His Holiness said, no. His Holiness said, no, you don't need to. The Dharma is only for serious people. That's what he said. So from that day on, I don't know the student who asked question still remembers this the strong teaching, but it really triggers in my mind. So that for that reason, sometimes I do my commitment and I was rushing to finish it and stop it somewhere there and say what I'm doing. It's not important to finish everything here, but first to start with, I need to really have this conviction or some kind of strong motivation to do it. So I close it and then I will have a coffee and think about why I should do it. And maybe the power of the coffee, maybe. Yeah. So necessary, we need this. And then once you do 1, 2, 3 times, and then you will really feel like without the Dharma, without the practice, my life will become difficult, for sure. And then, time to time, whenever an incident or a problem or suffering comes, you will not directly ask a question to the teacher who already you taught several times how to connect to that. And then this question will be, you try to think where my teacher said this problem and to connect to these teachings. And then still there's a problem, you will go and then ask a question which is relevant. But many of us, including myself, we learn from here and close this. We have a problem, we go to the same teacher and a different kind of question. But the teacher will try to give the same antidote, and then you get like, okay, my teacher will say that again. No? So make it do little homo, then there is a huge benefit. Huge benefit. I tell you a short story, then we start. Otherwise, one of my friends from Canada, before his life was going fantastic, he bought a new house and a beautiful wife, and he's so proud of his life. And then he says, yeah, how's life in India, you know? But then I just go like, yeah, everything fine. Yeah, okay. So what are you studying these days? So a few years later, and then he calls me like, I wanted to come to Dharamsala and to spend a little time with you. And I say, come. And then he comes, and then I say, how's your life in Canada? No, it is so difficult now. And then he had a problem with his wife and his business and so on. He's full of suffering. And then I said, now the good thing is he wanted to settle it in a different way of approach. So he will ask some question like, yeah, in the Dharma you say something like this, so tell me how that really works. So he wanted to dig inside. And then we discuss every evening we will discuss about the Dharma, and then he will take quite seriously. And I push him to go to His Holiness teaching. And then he goes to His Holiness teaching, and then he started liking that very much. And then after a few years later, he comes with his wife, and then he's a totally changed person. He said a very funny thing. Like he went to His Holiness teaching, and then he came, wow, His Holiness, amazing. That really tickled in my heart. Maybe His Holiness realization go up since I received the teaching, or something really changed in me. That is something definite. So, and then the result of his the confidence why he's saying this is when I checked with how the family relation going, and then he said, wife is same, never changed, but I can bear what she's going through, all these emotions, and I can understand deeply there. So no hatred, but still annoying is there, but no hatred. And for that reason, I can just sit down and look at her face and try to understand her. Oh yes, that is powerful, he said. And now wife changed, and she is following his steps. He's a wonderful person. I can be terrible sometimes, but he taught me a lot. So it's a completely changing picture there. So that's our hope. That's how we go into Dharma, taking into daily life, and then you feel like, yes, needed. Okay. 다 되는 거란수 땅 아란주기 딘제기 다 카데 작서럽디 다 녀몽당 아니 지게 당진다 두조레 디 두점변 두조라 때지 지기 구조 태세야 되라 녀롱 오신 바주 söje 아니 구조 태고 두점베 땅 아종 오시 sö야라 아니 지기 소소기 영화라 따에 요래 아니 영화라 마된 병난라 아니 지게 라마다 아니 덴주도 저 제고야 돼 개점 차그로 봐.
And so in thinking about what it is that the things that we have to sort of challenge and take on, these such as the mental afflictions, the self-grasping. So we have to sort of. It's important to find a way to come to some understanding of how the way these things are and how they work, and so we're sort of here sort of directly encountering the text here. These things are important to directly encounter in our own experience. But first of all, receiving teachings from the gurus, and then also reading the texts and treatises is also very important in this process of coming to understand how to take on the mental afflictions and these things like mental affliction and self-grasping.
So my teacher would say, how to appreciate our guru is like. If you are so sick that you cannot stand by your own and you are in the bed, and then a doctor or nurse will come, will say you can do it, put little effort, and then use so many motivational lecture, this could be our teacher. And then somehow your teacher cannot be with you forever, or the teacher cannot put his knowledge in you. So now what we have to rely on is like a vitamins. So what kind of the vitamin that we need to take is the great Nalinta's text. So these together, and all these two conditions, and the top of that you have willing to fight. Otherwise, you don't want to wake up, you don't want to recover, and then eating the medicine or whatever kind of conditions you have, it's not going to work very well. So very important. So this text and the masters, great masters, what they experience, they share the knowledge. This should be our immune system booster. So to wake up, to fight against our negative emotions. Okay. 다 디 인도 잠베 아주기다 단다. 계산을 하는 땐제 양다 준이게 나로네. 다 단다. 15명수디 레인스바. 네.
네. 나래. 식지 니버디기 타마 식스 난스
인도 수는 잡아 주세요. 네.
대로. 예, 디디. 제제제. 나 림식이 민단속 되기 제시잡네. 그래서 님도 민단속 제시잡네. 디디 삼샤로 시도.
디베. 다다 슈 디체나 제지 중문 주 된도 오세 디버디미다니.
가리바티 브름시. 디.
쉽게 든지 된딩 버들베.
든지 든데 알레오. Let's go.
I think yeah.
네.
그래서 다들 말로 하시겠다. 개든 로봇 넘버 10 제벌 민주나는 뒤에 민도 수 중앙 민주대 아니 가고 넘버 10 개대 마영여도 수고 민주나니 뒤에 노보다 노보니 도스 중앙 민주로 시중위치로스.
So then, this is reading just it's on page 4 of the translation. It's just the paragraph just above verse number 3, where it reads, the second half of the paragraph, where it reads, if the migrator's mind does not fall into a state of unconsciousness at that moment, name and form do not take place. And then there's a quote which says, Ananda, if the consciousness does not enter the mother's womb, the nurna, which is a kind of elongated form of the embryo, cannot develop and happen either.
다 디코도 delata pejeng azu diji kotu yore pena nyama 겨울무치기 tsiri tsung도지 갑이야 tsiri 버졸이야 간디나치 제장가 개월랜당 고티 아니 개월랜당 고데려야 아니 페나지기 ranjo biologically tanda jiga zure pamaniga lo ani suya gyemya che an diang pagi tilida ani mai gongal ya gyemya che ani deji kasore kasorda dinjegi pamanigi ani kudani di ningsam di kasoda 초 자롱 두잔베 아니 냐바르도 아니 부구제비 차바요르베스 괴메바텔라 차바요르베스디 차바요 마레스 디 송두 잠베 다탄다 디나로리아 아니 탄다 디가라노가 넘버시바 쇼세티.
So here in the text, in reference to where it talks here about if the migrator's mind does not fall into a state of unconsciousness, at that moment name and form do not take place. And this relating this to his wholeness is spoken about in terms of when he was having discussions and with the scientists about particularly about the subject of taking birth, and he asked the scientists whether if you had the two parents is sort of in terms of biological birth, and if the two parents from the side of the two parents, the sperm and the egg of the two parents had no sort of faults with them, they were complete. And then when the sperm and egg were conjoined, connected together, was it certain that that a child would be born? The child would take birth, the child would be born, and the scientists replied that even under that condition, there was no guarantee that a child would be born. So maybe we can relate that to what's being said here in the text.
제장가 number 쉐발라 닝삼 자킹기 디 파마니기 구라 두바점지 마임바 아니 number 쉐바 슈구 그래서 디 롱디 가서 르바다 롱창만 되나도와.
So here in the text we have the sort of reasons and also the sort of kind of scriptural citations, but also the reasons why just having the sperm and the egg of the parents conjoining is not enough. That in order to in the process of taking birth, the additional factor of consciousness is also required in order for birth to occur.
다디 number 쉐바 예버 주나세 겔바세디 먼저 참바토르 계절에.
Yeah.
그 참바토당들 대시 방고 스타요레. 배는 지시지기 나로라 아니 바로도 나로네 깨와 최베갈라 고 깨와 야고주 선도 요요 버봐 디 인도 잠베 고 깨와 야고주 선도 요요 잠베 마잉애들 만잉잠 자원도 잠베 코디 나로라야 당보들이야 조 남시디미게 차원도 잠베 디기 초와도들 가려 연구를 쓰도 민대보다 뭐지비지 고소선 내가 여번에 뭐루버지 통해야지 나는 부부 춘춘 가시를 잘라 야고시 때는 두자시 때는 시우 대화만하는 유식도 와 디나 신체 지게 또 그러나 토르로 주는 거래서 디 토르야 디 가르쳤으나다 양 바르도기 나와서 한번 놓으러 와 바르도기 나와 놓으러 와 바르도 나와 놓지 아니 다고 세디기다 이 지게 다가란 게 appearance 그래 어디래
So perhaps we can so what this is being stated here is this word that's being used in Tibetan in terms of this falling into a state of unconsciousness as like kind of fainting or falling into unconsciousness, and it says that the name and form don't take place. So maybe for the sort of being, the sentient being which is in the bardo, and they're searching for a sort of a kind of desirable rebirth, something like that. They have a sort of criteria for a sort of rebirth that they desire, and maybe maybe there's a way in which so this is the sort of appearance to the bardo being, and maybe they sort of the consciousness starts to enter towards a situation of rebirth which is sort of not in accord with their desire, and maybe there's some way in which they, because so bardugi mi de because bardugi semjen de su ten or she the ningsam joy the pa dubudus ine sosugi magane
그런 되변의 신시지 매버지 통도
yeah
당보 통원도 나와 가르치고 있어도 이도 원시부 통원 봐. 파문이 인zam자 원도 다 지금 저와 제백qabla. 그 이도 원시부 통원지 마죠. 근데 여번에 시지 매바 통원도 배도 그렇 전부 돌아서서 차고 있어.
And so maybe this as the kind of joining of the sperm and the egg, and they start to move towards that situation, but which initially appears attractive, but maybe as they get sort of close, it becomes they start to dislike it or become unattractive, and at that point, we could say they sort of becomes kind of faints, becomes unconscious, which is a sort of appearance for the being in the bardo.
Maybe this is a sign when the first baby when born, they have to cry. But sometimes we say if the baby don't cry, it's not a good sign because of the breath and all the lungs or heart or something problem. But then also it could be a good sign because he didn't really enjoy coming into this world. Maybe. 닝섬 자마 타도 남시 잡아 토로레스 나와.
And then he gave it. So it means that they in the process of them actually taking a birth, they don't have, it doesn't appear, it appears attractive initially, but then as the moment comes, it's unattractive. Then they faint, and then after this, there's an unconsciousness of the appearance to the bardo, and then the birth takes place. So that's what the text is explaining.
제와주로스 다테네 다데네 디디로션지도 다 명도 수도 차주는 제제 중에 중원 주로스 다 신의 둥 다디리샤 명도 디자와드 로셔 명도 수니 차주나 제제 중에 중원 주로스.
So then we have the first two lines of the third verse of the root text where it says, once name and form occur, the six sources arise.
다디 시리비 다지 제본 란주 남셰준도 비기 나로리아 지기 마이크로스코프 나로 다지 제베다 되는 노노보다 안데 저 상물로 패션 되던 잡으지 매도 다 당보 차용도 없다.
So if you were able to in looking through a microscope to the tiny formations of the embryo as it develops, maybe these descriptions which are given in the text here, maybe there could be something similar to that if you were able to examine them on a sort of microscopic level.
다 되네 남시 슈지 되네 다 된다 가서 민수 지리비 된데세다 딜레 원도 전에 딱고 당보디 남시 뭐 슈부근들이야 고 디르지르 봐 가서 강보동바선도 차고 봐 강보동부터 제장 말한 저기 디브리 디디 가서 그래 된데 양라 중이기 되고 그냥 지비가봐야 강보동바지 지기요 봐 전전되나.
So and then after this process, the consciousness enters, and then the link of name and form arises. But before that, the sort of representation in the sort of paintings, the representation of the because of the link of name and form is an empty house.
제가 단 넘버 10을 주 온도 전에 아니 되네 거기 단단한 줄다 강보동바들 다고장인 순으로 총지 엔테니신의 제제 툴을 소바도 줘됐다 내용도 전에 인 제제 툴라 디나로를 야고 싶송도 등에 개버치고
So then after that the consciousness enters into the new birth, and then it takes up the name and form, so it's like becoming the owner of the house then, and then from the name and form the six ayatanas, the six sense sources arise, and then it uses a phrase in the text here where it says the six sense sources are the gateways or the doors to the arisal of suffering.
제상가다 말한주기 사제녀월레베 풍부 라 다고자미디 당아주 넘버 10을 쇼온도 전에 Any shine dawa jani ta nga zu nga se de den le or ba di le samlo tang che ala nga ran zu kansa se ne de karje se de man che ba ta uma tingju ba pa cha che de uma ran ju ba yo re sem zam ba yo re ta di shem ba zu to zu ba song ro ma do shin kansa se ne de sem la she go ya che se de
Sem le she go away.
wa she go re se de
Sen-
number shabati number shobati jeje tu la chu ma 냠도 채원도 신이 계제 줄을 따고 잡냐래 아니 민수를 따고 잡냐래 네 가르레스도 넘버 쉐바드 리뷰 진행기 쉐르도 와세스로 리뷰도 와
And so the sort of here in this context where the taking up these tainted, appropriated aggregates, and so there's and so this in sense in which there's an appropriator, the person who appropriates those tainted sort of appropriated aggregates, and for most of the sort of in the Buddhist context, the philosophical schools. They putting Prasangika Madhyamaka aside, but for Svartantrika Madhyamaka, certainly for Chittamata, maybe a little in the lower tenet systems it's slightly different, but for instance Svartantrika Madhyamaka and Chittamata, then there's a sort of owner or possessor, one who the I and the mine, and so the one who is the I in these systems such as Chittamata and Svartantrika Madhyamaka. They identify the owner or the possessor of those tainted, appropriated aggregates as being the consciousness in those philosophical systems.
다디나만 디슬로나 동에 중앙 제바 니지 주비시다 제외 고이서 뭐보 니지 미다 나와도 나도 제도 류도 이제 자와 제제 주고 민다 수지 유진 제벌 주로 대이사 미기 수남 통에 이기 대회내서 온버를 셴벌 주로 제 자월로 소배나 제지 tun에 동해 준비 제외 고니 이노 대체 대다 제지 주 중앙 당사 아니 제지 주 중앙 제소스
And so then reading through the text after this, the first half of verse 3, it says, because it produces the birth of suffering, the arisal of suffering, the gateways that naturally give rise to the six sources that possess the cause of name and form are produced. So the name and form, the six sources are the product of the next product of the link of name and form, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind, the six sources. In this context, with the eyes seeing forms, joy arises, an attachment is created, and so on. The six sources are the gateways. Because of this, the six sources are the gateway of suffering. So after the production of the six sources, and then it goes on to.
다지네 단대기 계제 두디 중화 계제 두디도 수용바 될 때네 아니 가리기 그랬어도 작바 양다 중으로 주로스 작바 생이데 디그레스.
And so then as is stated in the second two lines of verse 3, where it says, and so after that, so after the production of the six sources, and then depending on the six sources, actual contact arises, complete contact arises.
다 가진스도 뒤뒤기 샤바디 마손에 유를 찾아는 주제 자와체야 돼요 말이데 계초조 데브선럽지 아주 마손에 지기 내가 제초조 데브 다고 깬다 망부주 초벌 때니 아니고 디 자파세드 계고 버다 초와다데 주마지고 뭐라 년래야 넘버 쉐비기 내가 차상하지 단다 제고 주주로 봐 제당하다 계제 주텔라디니 아니 깨버쳐봐 세르르 넘버 쉐비 깨버치 주디 유어리스 다 단다 렉바 값을 가리기고 가리용고 세르르 아니 렉바 신이디 민당 송다 되잖아 때네 다 초과 두비 공부들이 때네 개와 권한데 대달 민당 대달 민수 때네니 넘버 쉐비 깨버리 주르스.
Yeah, and so then here the in terms of the six sense sources, there are sort of way in which with them and then on the basis of that the contact And then it's because of the 소원이 게 chopares.
단다 계주로 초와다 상만 계주로 봐.
Yeah.
이내 된게 넘버십에 계제스도 계버치고 고.
Yeah. Yeah.
계버치고 고디 레브레스.
Yeah.
계요만 단다. 남시 차상 내가 제일 리주로 봐.
Yeah, so then all of the sort of activities of the sort of consciousness in relation, the six sense sources are there as a sort of underlying factor, which means that then all the other processes with the contact, then all the other processes of consciousness are ready to activities are ready to sort of arise. Here, so the conditions are all there for all of the these other processes to arise. So it says here then in verse number 4, where it says, so how is contact? What is contact, and how is it produced? And it says it's produced by the coming together of these factors which are mentioned in a sort of a collection together of all these factors which are mentioned in verse 4. So it says it is produced only depending on I, form, and thought. Therefore, in dependence of name and form, consciousness arises.
제상가 코너세디 그 코너디 구주시다요레스 가전에서는 그 미국 다지 미국 공부체 아니 유디 답변은 속도 지켜요 속도체 되니 덴체스도 좀 대마타진들이 대마타진들와 다 간지 오시리 셰바디랑기 시리 올 네트에 들어와 대마타진세야 오 딘디디 숨디 초소나 딘디 초소나 아니 가리기그레세디 아니 야 단단 알아주고 월이야다 렉바세디 용용버리스 렉바세디 렉바세디 투비선로 기저봐 듀바다 투비 기저봐 시장다 듀바세디 데지야요 듀바 어디.
And so this is talking about so the consciousness the consciousness arising out of this aggregation or coming together of the meeting of these conditions which are mentioned in this verse. So for instance, if we're talking about producing an I consciousness, then in terms of the I consciousness, you would have what's called the dominant condition, which would be the I sense power. You would have the object or the observed object, or the condition of the observed object, which would be the physical form itself. And then you would have the immediately preceding condition, which is actually the sort of what is called the sort of clarity and awareness of the quality of the mind, and or what is sometimes called clear and knowing nature of the mind. So that bringing that quality, then all of these three conditions kind of aggregate together or meet, and then at this point, that's what we then we talk about this as being what is meant by contact, by these three particular conditions. So in the text it uses it sort of says only. A word is also used in the Tibetan where it says only these, only depending. It says, sorry, in the first line it says produced only depending on. So this is referring to only. It has a big meaning, and it refers to these three specific conditions coming together to create to be the contact.
저장 only said the 유견 초보 점 텔레된 기억이었어요.
Yeah. So a great way of a sort of very important way of understanding that is that just by the mere coming together or aggregation of those conditions, then it arises.
저장가 말하는 쪽이 이 단다 월이야 갈수 그래 어디 네가 하는 얘기 대시 쳐버려 저장가 뒤 유강기 대시 대시 셔셔 단다 개월에 배가버야 디 디카도 대시 하버 단다 쇼장 십제 뒤주 tun주들 대시 하송래 십제 뒤주 tun주디 간데 아주 남시 마슈 배가블라. It's raining inside now, huh? the number shepherd ya ani ma ningzam tab dine kewa dine chipyo ni yongdu zambe ani sudan suni kat dus chije kat hebben da shin chije kat hebben da shin sudo suni kat hebben da shin che en kewa ma le wondu zambe sudo suni tubu na shire slab dus song yore.
So earlier in the text it uses this when we're discussing about the consciousness kind of entering into sort of conjoining with the egg and the sperm. It also talks about there's a melongi. So there's an example of the of a sort of the how. So, for instance, when we were going from this birth and sort of transmigrating, leaving this birth, it uses an example of a mirror and a reflection in the mirror, and how then the reflection, the form, the face, and the reflection of the face in the mirror separate. So that's the way in which we sort of go from this life into and migrate into the next life, and then how. When we are sort of then the conjoining of the consciousness with the egg and the sperm, then this point the face and the mirror, the reflection of the face and the face meet together.
When we leave this world, the appearance of our life separates. So this separation is the mirror and your face. When it meets, then it happens. When you separate from this, this disappearance is reality. So then it is not, you shouldn't be thinking because in the mirror there is a reflection of your face, and that your face is going into that. That's a very total wrong thing. It is just meeting of this mirror in the face, then it appears only. So similarly, this is a good message, because saying there is no kind of the existence of your so-called you going like this into the next life. So now this I will cover a little bit in the next session, because it's very important, because the whole concept of impermanence of the teaching is for kind of this. For an example, normally the impermanence in our mind is more about death, letting go, only this, but nothing much to do with the self-grasping of this I. So once you come to know the subtlest of the impermanence of this I, then it's so great, because then you will not cling to this the continuum of this I. That the continuum means yesterday I continuously coming to this today. That is the one of the main resource for clinging. So that Buddha said, the continuum. He said there is a continuum, but not how it works. Like from yesterday's the kesang rangegi o yimbadi ane tirin lu yong maris.
So the entity of the sort of nature, the entity of yesterday's me doesn't come into today. Is not coming into the me of today.
제장가 커상기 계상기 단다랑 까마카시엘리니 기지시니지 나당 단대가니 시딩고로 요 말했어.
There's no common there's no mutual there's no common locus between the person the me that was talking a few minutes ago and the me of now. There's no they're contradictory, they're mutually contradictory.
So then when we hear this, then we get what? Oh, this is a great word. Wow. So this non-Buddhist cannot accept this because some religion believes the continuum of the eye, but not continuum of this solid body. So that's why they say whatever we do good, that the soul, that's how they bring soul. Soul goes and then it carries whatever you did good and bad on that. But then in a Buddhist context, we don't say like this. We say there is no this kasatanda ngo yimbuji dusunro maris ngo di any contagion rogre sidu tatanda chogo zamshilade.
So there's no sort of continuity in the sense of one entity, a prior entity coming into being the entity of now, coming into now. It's merely this coming together, this aggregation of causes and conditions, which.
풍부 윤을 봐도 다셔야지마도 그런 오도 용예지요 말이에요. 세도 될 다음에 로고만 집에 다음에 들이다.
Because it was.
그런 경우도 용예지요 말이에요. 매나양 풍부 윤을 때는 샤고를 했어. 풍부 윤점지만 계시해요 말이에요. 대시에도 또 초점세 드려.
I saw somebody.
다들 이 메론 상담들도 와. 멜론나로 요 말이스 파도 말이스 멜론당 동반이 퇴바 점식이 아니 디게지셔야지마도 요 말이스.
So in terms of this explanation, so there's no the sort of prior entity of a phenomena such as the self doesn't come into the present. A past entity doesn't come into the present, but the way that we sort of talk about these continuums is not through that way of continuum, but the way in which, as in the example of the face and the mirror, the face doesn't go into the mirror, but on the coming together of the conditions of the mirror and the face, then we have the reflection. In the same way, the coming together of the conditions we have, there is because a 균 삼도 시샤.
균삼 땐 샤르주. 풍비 균삼라 땐 시비 계셨지만.
So you can still posit it on the basis on the mere. Because the mere continuity of the aggregates, you can still and this coming together of pumbo soksam say the
풍비 균을 때니 강사 세지마도 시에요 말이스.
So the only way to posit the is the person is merely posited on the mere continuum of the aggregates.
어디다 제장과 강사 세니디 모두 수용되게 되지 마십시오. 균기 초점된 파시에지 봐도 다요 말이스.
So there's so it's not this you can't posit the sort of entity or the continuum of the person on the basis of the of entities. You can only talk about it in terms of being designated on the basis of the mere continuum of the aggregates.
균 삼디 제장 강사 따지 라완징이 동외 당매 세대 어디다.
And so then we talk about this the self which is not devoid of a self, which is permanent, partless, and independent. And on that level, we talk about talking about the selflessness of a person at that level.
Baba Viveka believes in this selflessness. So then Chandakirti debates in the 18th chapter. You believe this sort of selflessness good, but it's not enough, because still there is a grasping left over somewhere. So the whole debate in the 18th chapter is there. Okay, so we take a 15-minute break and then come back. So now when at the time of death, maybe most of the great practitioners, they pray and they make a request, and may I have before dying, there's no much pain, and then my mind can be stable to be ready for the death. So, and then how to be ready is one big thing. So now you have to have a power or a strength to look into the reality, how the death process. So if you think to cling to this yesterday, and then the person who tsedi want to chebe ani na mangbo ji dil tenche ani nga si ji nga sin zinde bi na ta ba zhe deng jin qin bu ji de was ta ngo cha bu ji is ta ba zhe deng jin nga si tsedi want to chebe gi ta nga zhen bu ji yo ba de la ani cha ji ta nga me ba cha ru du ne lo de chebe na ani be narrow minded.
So then, thinking about this, the way of this approaching death here, and then thinking about all the, if we sort of all of the sort of experiences or appearances of this life that we are related to, this I, and how we the sense of I, so clinging to an I, sort of related into that sort of very long amount of time or process of all of these experiences, and the I related to the I which has been related to all of those experiences, and then clinging to that, and then with that attachment, then having the fear that we will become that kind of I will become non-existent, is a very sort of narrow-minded way of thinking about of coming to death.
Like if you adopt a dog from a street, a puppy, and then give so much love, and then when he is like fully grown, you throw him into like a huge crowd, and then he will get so scared, right? So scared, because you already spoiled him so much. Of the clinging to this very comfortable life of grasping towards this. So, on the other hand, the dog who is trying to survive on his own, even he goes there and here, kilometers and kilometers, not a problem. So, like this, where our appearance, we feel like this is only me, and then very narrow-minded, and then you have like, I don't want to die. Right? Yeah. 제상가 달라 차베 다차 타셔디 아니 제르무치 남른 치면 알아라 아니 nga meba cha du nyembe nga meba cha du zawe nga chi meba cha du gejet mebche cedigi comfortable tending ji yorba comfort dil tending di meba cha du dit let ma tam de di enko chiwi ka su chisim tamyo kabla ani jigba that tamode disi what is.
And so, in terms of this, in terms of the sort of subtle form of clinging to a self at the subtle level, and J. Rinpoche says in his treatise on the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, that the clinging to this self, which then and the clinging to the basis of this comfortable this life of comfort that we've had, and then the fear then at the time of death, this at the last moments of the time of death, then this kind of subtle this subtle fear of becoming non-existent, of not of becoming non-existent, which is a kind of grosser way, but this subtle way of the losing this basis, or this life of comfort, is what is the fear, a subtle fear which arises at the time of death, right at the time of death.
어디 인도점에 딱 지금 시간을 하버들래 getting ready 있어야지. 아니 개지주디 세디 온도 집에도 수용돼야지. 단단한 신이기가 깨워치마는 인점전이 가디 비길 타직도 비길을 지냐면도 타직도 딜에서 지냐면도 타직도 미개기 깨버려 주변 가서야지 지냐면도 시지. 아니 딘데 참은제 텔레 땐도 샤샤베 초보점실을 삼제 도 대대버이나 리얼리티 디간에 로토버이나 아니 다치기 담에 친이받아 가고를 돼 이내 담에게 고아지기 되면 돈도 10에 인도점에 onko 유용업인이주도 템베 돈이 10에 인자 될라야 아니 산지 좀 된대기 개와 상부터 그랬어 이제 타지 개와 상부터 그랬어.
So so then if we sort of in this thinking of this process of getting ready in order to face death, at the moments when death comes and getting ready to face those, then or if we cannot sort of cling sort of one-sidedly to cling to the I from this life and the disappearance of the I of this life, and also not clinging kind of tightly, sort of one-sidedly or tightly to this to the idea of the self which will come in the future life, the self which will be reborn in the future life, and not clinging to either of those sort of tightly or one-sidedly. But if we can have a sort of more relaxed sort of approach where we see the I as a sort of just as a mere coming together aggregation of its conditions, then this, although this we wouldn't call this this sort of way of thinking or understanding a real a complete understanding or a proper understanding of selflessness, but it's something which is sort of in that sort of along those lines, and something which is in accord with reality, then this would be a better kind of kind of mental context in which to face death.
So a few years ago when I was in Canada, so then I received a message from a lady that she wanted to see me because she found one Tibetan Lama is nearby, so she wanted to talk. So she is in a hospice, and so that was my first time going into the hospice. And then she was there with all the tubes and everything. And then she had this brain tumor quite strongly. And then one stupid thing what I did is, without knowing what she really wants, maybe I thought like maybe she's scared to die, and I give like, you don't need to worry about that, and so on. And she was listening very carefully. And after maybe me talking 10 minutes later, and she said, I have no fear of dying. But the most fear thing is, almost now 30 years I studied and the process of the death through Tantra from the Sutra. I practiced very hard in my life. Now, this tumor can be very pain. So doctors will give some kind of drugs, and then she will become like a kind of
almost
unconscious. So going through unconscious, then her fear is, if she dies in this state, And then she feels all this almost 30 years studying and practicing. Now I cannot bring this kind of practice in the time of death. Then I feel like kind of waste. That was very powerful to me. Like, whoa, I wish I can be like that. For a few minutes, I couldn't say anything, just stare. This is an incredible person. And then I told her, so whether you can practice at the time of the death or not, doesn't much matter. Because you have this strong wish to apply this antidote very strongly. And simja
so something which is the thing which is kind of held in the sphere of or sort of influenced by, and the thing which is influenced, the thing which is how would you got a word? Simba.
Simba.
What is held by the force of the wish.
So what is held by or held in held by, and what is the thing which is held, those two.
This is so powerful that you need to bring, because like we already have so much experience in our life. So like if you wish to wake up early in the morning, like at 5 o'clock, and then your flight is around like 6, then you sleep. Sometimes you will wake up before 5, before the alarm goes on. That is the strength of the mind, that you wanted to do this right thing. You wanted to do something you don't want to miss. So in the Tantri it goes very subtle, but in the Sutra and in our lifetime we experience this. So you no need to worry that you cannot apply this whatever for 30 years of what you have put effort will not go. It will not go waste. So she said, yes, that is my last hope. So she was done now. Now I don't know what happened. Maybe no more. But she's an incredible person I met. So yeah. Ta di indu zambe tanda di nangol le du zambe ta. Dene rakwa seya di ane tanda di nangol ya. Ane tangi nyen ode ten zhishi japsa dwa. Di indu zambe ta dine ma di lo shebe na ko de sewa cha. Tela sa migdang sudang zhenche des yile dire do tene rekwa u seya di. So
then so then we just reading, so to clarify this a little bit more, we'll read down through the text. So we read this verse. It's produced only depending on I, form, and thought. Therefore, independence of name and form, consciousness arises.
Tela mida sudan denje desa yila cheba asa yula soba mitunba number shebe sabyon do yuba tsungba dema tabi jenda denis e migi number sheba jeba yinos ta migi number sheba de kadu jigri sila du zambe any miwanche soche any dema taje du sum duba tela deni any number sheba jigri is.
And so then verse then the first 2.5 lines of verse 5, where it reads, I, form, and consciousness, the union of these three is the contact. And then so these three are the sort of causes, the sort of physical eye sense power, and then the physical forms, and then the immediately preceding condition. Those three are the union of those three is contact. And then the Chandrakirti's commentary to that reads, with reference to I, forms and thought, mental attention, object and so on, which are different depending on the immediately preceding condition, which is concomitant, become seeds for consciousness, producing the I consciousness. So those become the causes for the consciousness.
다 되네 베나 미기고 캐마요 제 미사 다 소울 시나 아니 미기게 시르바 다 되네 유응아 방전에 참말을 기시해 요레스.
And also this can of course be this is just the this is just the discussion in relation to the I consciousness and the arisal of the I consciousness and the conditions for that. But then of course we can apply this to all the other to the five different kind of that's just for form and the I consciousness. So in relation to all the other five objects of sort of sense consciousness, it can be the same can be applied.
렌지 풍부시 진이제네 명대사 디지르 숨부딜라 데네세 게미게 나바샤바 데네 명다 술라데네 게와이노스 디지르 온보도 유다 나바샤바 숨부테다 듀바 카이바테 세야데 듀세베 텐디 아니 고 디숨 듀세드랑 고와텔라 튜냠발로 고야 지금 그레스 튜냠바 따이나야 디갑수기디 고 rinpoche 깨버봐 당보 수드체 당보 수드체 테네 미완체 테네 디카르소레 다게 딜숨디 rinpoche 레겨봐 디 이르좀베 튜냠바 말봐 제장거디 듀바세야디 고 rinpo 여베 이나야 차상 듀용두 듀용두 인디케버레 세티 톤다레스.
So then reading further from the verse, it says the I and the source of form are form. The four aggregates characterized by thought are name. And therefore, depending on these three, I consciousness is produced. They are produced in dependence upon name and form. And so here so what it means here therefore when the three, the sensory power, the object and the consciousness converge, this immediate condition of mutual benefit is the characteristic that defines contact. So here, particularly this word here, converge, or the coming together of the convergence or aggregation of these three being described as contact, but there is they're not. They don't all of these three conditions don't exist at the same time. For instance, the physical form, in this case for the I consciousness, and the sense power are because the dodebe want to cheba they cause dunyamba mare say gidwa. No. Dodebe want to cheba they cause dunyamba mare you dan wombo ni.
Oh did it. Rinpoche keba.
Yeah, so they're actually the although these three conditions, it doesn't mean that they all come together simultaneously in one moment, because in the systems the physical form would appear first, and they would arise in stages. So the physical form would appear first, and then later to that the sense the sense power, the sense sphere or sense power would arise. So they actually, the contact means for them to sort of come together doesn't mean that they all have to be there in the same moment.
다든지 그 작바디기 조디 치수 안에 초화계를 채우고 요봐 초화계를 채우는데 전부 딘데 듀버디 가르기 제대로 했어도 초화계에 땡 제대로 했어.
And so after this after contact comes then the next link of feeling, and so here, what's the sort of purpose of all of those sort of those conditions kind of converging or coming together? It's for they come together to provide a basis for feeling to arise.
제장가 단답아도 디 그소래 된데 양나 주기는 당아도 dimba봐도 레온도 잠베 다 마리바니도 삼나 당원도 잠베 지기 신이당 오다 되게 야만 보지 송도 저 창막이 가르된 거 열으시나 단다 아주 설류장고 도그 가스돌라 디유비 디중 세디 디게비 디게 세디 디지미지 딩아주 셈나로라 디 디샤고스 가서래 키워드서
Yeah. So the key sort of point or key thing that we should be careful to think about is that up to now we've reached here we've reached the 7th link of the 12 links of dependent origination, and so coming down from ignorance through all of the other links now down to the link of feeling, but what the so thinking about all of the sort of definitions of each of the links and their sort of their natures or entities, then what do these things show us? And this needs to be related to what is stated in the Rice Seedling Sutra, where it says, because this comes into existence, this will arise, this will occur, because that was arisen, that will the next will arise. So we have to sort of connect the links and their the definitions and their entities and meanings to that process of one existing and then the next occurring.
다 rekpa dinji rekpa di du bengo che dinji du ba tela teni ane chowa yanda 중국에서 다 chowa 스니데 컨데지레 슬라베이나 아니 디워텔라 chowa yanda 중원주 유이도 원하다 유도 미원하다 니가 라 도바 냠소 용와 유지 용와 지베나 chowa 연베나 chowa 시체베 대화다 동해다 아니 대화 마임바 양 동해양 마임바 오세 다 디도 당요 숨디
and so then we have then we've discussed this kind of entity of contact, which is this converging of those conditions, and now we then comes to the next link of feeling. So then we're sort of thinking about what the kind of entity or nature of that of feeling is, and so the verse reads on. So it's the last two lines of verse 5, where it says, "From contact, all feelings arise," and then it goes on to describe what the sort of an entity of feelings is, which is that feelings are the experience of an object, pleasant, unpleasant, or neither of these two, due to a knower experiencing its object, and these feelings are of happiness, suffering, and neither happiness or suffering. So you have these three feelings of the happiness, the suffering, or the sort of neutrality, neither happiness or suffering, the sort of equanimous feeling or neutral feeling.
Tene suda number 7 migdang subuteda dube chini jingje ragbal tene chowa yembal jige sheba te shindu stangen de sheba na shinche ongbo de yu de number 7 lama sum dube chini jingje ragba jingje gyu chowa yang tabar sheba ragbal chawo 세디기다 단다 초와 세디 아니 단지 이게 단다 이게 강들이야 지시 잡송아 단다 넘버 제베이나다 넘버 디리샤 할 줄도 마바디 마비 강네 아니 수다 다다 티다 로다 리잘라 소바도 다 탐제니 아니 고 넘버 쉐바 기원도 선배 딘디 넘버 쉐바 텔라테니 아니 넘버 쉐바 인도 선배 디 제수 아니 군중화 연구를 선배 디냠도 제가 요요버 봐. 그래서 좋아 요요버 봐. 그것도 좋아돼. 아니 좋아 끼기버렸어.
And so then the text reads on this third paragraph on page 5, where it reads, just as this is called feeling, depending on contact that is characterized by the convergence of the three of form, consciousness, which is the immediately preceding condition, and the I sense power, one should know that also the remaining, characterized by possessing the causes of the contact, occur for the convergence of the three, sense, organ, object, and consciousness. And so how do we sort of relate this process to how feelings arise? Then when we talked back in the 5th link about the way in which the based on the sort of all the sort of objects and then consciousness arise, causing the consciousness to arise. But when any form of consciousness arises, then it necessarily has to have the 5 sort of omnipresent mental factors that go with that consciousness. So within those 5 omnipresent mental factors, one of those mental factors is feeling. So this is how we relate. We talked about the prior link giving rise to consciousness. So this is how we relate it to this link now of feeling, because it's one of the omnipresent factors of consciousness.
다 되네 다 딘제기 초와딜레 차비 슈라 아니 초와디기 제수 깨마타도 아니 초와딜레 냠순용년기 세바지그레스 제제다 되네 최외 깽기 아니 세바데 세지지 중샤 what
yeah the sugar really to go to the computer color. So then with this having with the feeling arisen, and then immediately after that there's a sort of experiencer of that feeling, and that is the link then of craving or thirst or craving, and therefore it says in the first line of the 6th verse of the root text, where it says, with the condition of feelings, craving.
다 군도 중원의 주대 냥소 세죠. 지금 때 숙치무요. 디나로 가르쳐 줄자.
Yeah. So the very first sort of part of the commentary, straight after the verse, where it says this follows after the above passage. All feelings arise.
We don't desnobre. 제장가 리더다 가르쳐 버스도 아니 군도 중월 주르시스 냥소 스도 잠베 다 초와 대화지 인도 잠베 아니 디 카리 이네 메네가 디라고도 스된 디기 제소 주도레스.
Yes, so this in the Tibetan has a slightly different meaning to it. So it means that, for instance, certainly in the context of feelings of happiness, it's that feeling that we really need to pursue, or to get close to, or to pursue that feeling of happiness. So that's that's the way that we would translate this passage in the Tibetan, that when the feelings, particularly of something like happiness, arrive, we would pursue after. We need them, and we would pursue after them. That's more the meaning.
Now, why we don't like aversion? It is because it makes us the feeling uncomfortable. Yeah, it gives us uncomfortable. But we like the attachment because one solid reason, one best reason, what we say, I like it. That is the magical word. So from there, it is so hard to get away.
Yeah.
You give 1,000 other reasons, but one you just come to say, I like it very much. That will be only one reason. Other you say you shouldn't like it, give all this reason, it won't give up. So the reason is this happiness that you are clinged to. Happiness or the joy.
Yeah. So this feeling of the feeling of happiness, happiness feeling.
So from this passage, that's why I'm saying, kundu jungwa junxin, nyekso situ di jesu tapit.
Almost sort of uncontrollably, how we will sort of pursue that, or try to come near to it, almost uncontrollably trying to get close to this feeling of pleasurable sensation.
다들 말로는 세바 강로 최외 견여버드는 최외 견기 소스 세바 강로 최외 견여버스도 초와 영향이 가르쳤으나 아니 이제 세바 코란로 초와 숙청부지 깨워야 돼 가는 아마 초왕아마 되게 덴데 양라 주니기 나로네 아니 눈바 다 개바 세바 되게라 눈바 초와 깨버 봐 초와 되게 진 제버레스
가르치는 계기도
초와 진레스 초와 진레스
Yeah, so then the next part of the text, it reads, craving occurs with the conditions of feeling. And so, so craving occurs with the condition of feeling. So what this means is that with the feeling is the condition which creates the craving or the thirst. That's the condition which creates it, but because of the
because on the seventh it talks about the pleasure, or unpleasant, or then neutral.
Neutral feeling. Yeah.
So there, with this kind of feeling, especially the pleasant feeling that it becomes so important, then automatically when there is always a pleasant feeling, then there automatically becomes the craving or the attachment.
Yeah.
That's the saying.
That's what it is.
다 강기 칠들이 초회진 지치르시나 강기 세 번째인데 초회도 세벌 교회 초회 제도 뭐를 뇌도 시체베 된도 오스 디디브치 되네 지다시나스 리시 게데 텔로 초와 대와께바나 대단티 양도 거자 양도 대단 민저버치비 세바당 지디 둥인제나 대세 제베치비 칠 거자 제베치를 세바께버주로 웬데 대와야마인 동해야마인 뭐께바나니 대 민여버치비칠 세버주데스 다 세바델이야 숨치송도와.
Yeah. So then from there the text reads on. But what object possessor is this craving? So what is the object possessor? So what object possessor is this craving or thirst? It is the object possessor of feeling. Why? Because endowed with craving for the sake of feelings, becomes attached. Seeking that feeling, manifest desire is born. In what way? In the case of the onset of a pleasant sensation, because of wishing not to be separated from it, one becomes attached. When suffering arises at the moment, the attachment of wanting to separate. When suffering arises, at that moment, the attachment of wanting to separate oneself from it arises. Or in the absence of production of happiness or suffering, one develops attachment for that state not to end.
So from this context, what is giving us the teaching is the attachment focus.
The focus of attachment. Yeah.
Focus of the attachment is on the pleasure, the pleasant feeling. So then, is it every time like this? All the attachment is focused on the pleasant feeling or not?
Yeah.
That happiness, the happiness. So then, some says no. Like if you go to the shopping and you see there is a very nice thing, and then first you see a nice thing, and then you say, it gives me a pleasant feeling or the happiness, so that's why I'm buying. The attachment focus first to the nice thing, and then the happiness is the second. So some says like that. And here, then why this the link? It is especially because on the seventh it is talking about the happiness, and then that kind of attachment what we are talking is particularly this one is the mixé. 디단다 텐데 양로 중이 디기 rim바티 개원도 점베 아나코 당보 초와게 엔디지수 초와 대화 텔레템베 세바스 라빈자 텐데 양로 중이기 낭디 가가레스 야 남셔 윤도 아니 고 가서 그래 저와 대화 코나 아니 가지고 뇌차기비 유주를 샤고요 말했어.
Yeah, so this is not what's being talked about here is not in this sort of not in the regular way in which in our sort of all of our daily ways or something that we getting attached to these forms of happiness. This is a very specific and a special, specific kind of way which is being talked about here in terms of the within the 12 links, the link of feeling, and particularly here being related to the link of feelings of happiness, and then this kind of the eighth link of craving being sort of attached to that. This is different and from the ordinary way about getting attached to happy sensations of happiness.
People say like that, but my teacher always makes this statement that every time when there's attachment, you might say that first, because it's so beautiful, then the happiness, the seeking for happiness comes after that, and so on. You might have so many explanations like that, but the reason why the attachment is there, still the one good answer is that you are still craving towards this happiness, for sure. My teacher gives an example, saying if you wanted to have a good tea or coffee, and then to craving towards this coffee and tea, and then you need to have so many other conditions, right? All the necessary items, and so many kind of thing, and like apple strudel. You need so many kind of other things. So why you really need apple strudel? It's because apple strudel is so good. You could say, but at the same time, if you check our mind, the craving towards the happiness to have the apple strudel, that is the most important part, not the apple strudel. But the mind, how we give, right? So, actually, this is a really great teaching. So that's why I say all the teachings on the 12 links, especially this one is like feels so strong connected here. It's something really we need to bring this kind of awareness, and then. Little bit hesitation is there, right? So it's like the magical word saying when we are in a relationship, we say I love you very much, but you won't say I have a strong attachment to you. That's a big shock, right? But actually, this is the one. So similarly, when we have a craving or the attachment to something, it is you are going after the happiness. So that's we have to take away from this kind of teaching, I think. 제장가 디나로라 최외 된도 세버주 세치디 레무리스.
So there it has this feeling is for the purpose of craving. It says. Craving. Craving. So sorry. The third line of verse number 6, where it says, "Craving arises for the sake of feelings." That's why that is said.
So maybe because this craving is very important. That's why yesterday experience. After lunch, we had this cake, and then somebody said, "There's apple strudel." So we all that's such a good news.
Higher force.
And turns out apple cake. And so then this happiness just gone down. It's the expectation.
Expectation, yeah.
Expectation is the one which brings the craving so strong. So strong. So, you said something, Alex, about
that you have more attachment, it's stronger before you meet your... Before you go to meet somebody, that, a lover or something like that, the attachment is to the happiness that will be with that person that you expect to have. When you're actually with them, you might have a terrible time.
Experience.
That's true.
You actually get the object.
That's true. So my
expectation.
one time, there one occasion, I just gave some bunch of advice, kind of unnecessary, because the person is deeply, madly fallen in love. And so I was giving you so many reasons, be careful and so on. And his mother had a hard time already with him. So his mother said to me, Rinpoche, now maybe please keep up on that, because you cannot save him on this issue. I believe when this kind of strong attachment is there, then at that time, Lama, Guru, parent, doesn't work. So better to just give a simple guidance and then stop. I can remember that. So that's why the more you have the craving, and then sometimes we look into the where you are craving towards. It's tricky actually. And then 먼저 디스그바 이두원와 직통도 잠베 아니 차과지도 슬라고. 인도 잠베 이두원와 예배 좀 생기 아니 차과지 초고요 좀 시고로 봐. 이나야 정보 시합이나 이두원와 통야기 이두원와디 오호랑 아니 이동원의 수지도 스토브 여러 배스를 때 신의 제버체야지 봐.
그래서 제버체.
이동원와 통구도 세야지 봐. 이동원이 코랑게 통주는 신이 이동원이 두개슬라나. 이 신의 제버체 얘기죠 봤어.
And so we often say, we give as a reason for the reason for to be a sort of for attachment or sort of craving towards things, because they we're sort of drawn towards them because we sort of say that because they have a sort of attractive quality to them. But actually, if we're really honest, if you looked at this situation and you really said that sort of attractive or sort of appearance that sort of draws you to them, that sort of attractiveness, does it really exist within the object that you're talking about or not? Then this is really something that we need to sort of analyze carefully.
제장가 이두원의 오보지 영어체. NND 지수 딘제기 초와 대화지기. 도 대화 디기 지수 아니 디단체베니 차와제베베 슬람나. 안조 삼라당나 노수예베선도 주요. 이나 오이니줄라 딘제기 이두원와지 요레데 안조 이두원와 요 말이시기 요 말에. 이나양 단다 고물루루기 다 고물루루 순스네디그리 랍제 다 접제베기 단다 대화데 나로라야. 아니 안쪽에 취미 유지기 로다사디 아니 가리간을 따기도 슬라베이나 취미 유지기 로다사디 덴버르 드베 오보지 케용지 덴버르 드베 표면지 케용지 표면에 대라 덴버르 드베 아니 이동하지 로다기도
덴버르 드베 이동. So the way that we think we generally think about how it goes is that there's something there which is sort of has an attractiveness to us, and then on the basis of that attractive sort of attractiveness, then we develop the feeling of happiness, and then from there proceeds attachment, and that's like we say, well, that's the way it goes. But in reality, if we sort of look at this sort of the way that it really works is that when we talk about this something as the attractiveness of something, and then producing this chain of events, then what's really happening is that we have to look at the way in which in this process this inaccurate attention or inappropriate attention, discordant attention, this sort of superimposes qualities onto the object and is part of this process, and the way that works is that bringing, so we're not sort of denying the existence of a sort of attractiveness, let's say, but the process works by where we take we take to mind an object, something which is to be inherently existent, like an inherently existent person, and then we this inappropriate attention or inaccurate engagement sort of superimposes inherent attractiveness upon it, and then the attachment comes like that. So that's actually how the process works.
제정을 가란주 이도 지단이 이도 원통하다. 이도 원sel을 하고 줬다바 디점식이 아주 차바집에 내바면 누가스.
So sorry, 이도
원다바다. 이도 원sel을 하고 땄나? 아니 차바집에 내바요 말이스. 차바요 말이스.
So in terms of this is sort of the attractiveness, and then because of 이도 옹세 say
이도 원다바다.
따바다 파다바
따바.
예,
이도 원다바다. 이도 원sel을 하고 따바이나. 차바집에 내바요 말바스.
So in terms of the seeing things as attractive, and then seeing things as sort of overly beyond what the sort of quality, the attractive quality they actually have, there's no necessity that attachment needs to arise from that.
베나 라마 산지 응외 메나야. 라마 산지 응외를 따바다. 아베트 쉬우다고요, 봐. 근데나 신양 말한 쪽이 차바체메데 닝지체메데 따온도 쉬우지고 따고 봐. 그래서 따오 용도 좀 이로 원제를 하고 따버려. 이나양 네 이로 원제를 하고 따니 그 텔레티니 차소녀 뭐 기계에 계획해요 말이지.
So yeah, so there's no sort of necessity to sort of that in terms of this sort of in attractiveness, and then sort of superimposing beyond its kind of it'd be like beyond its nature, and putting adding some sort of higher attractive quality onto it doesn't necessarily have to lead to attachment, because we could take the example of sort of taking one of our gurus, perhaps as and then in sort of in relation to them, sort of superimposing the qualities perhaps beyond which they have of being say the Buddha, and so that way of looking at them as a Buddha. So this doesn't necessarily have to lead to attachment. There is, and also in the four immeasurables, when we talk about the immeasurable love, immeasurable compassion, these are sort of things which are sort of we've sort of superimposed a quality on the top of something, but it's not a positive quality on the top of it. But it doesn't have to lead to necessarily to attachment.
다치던가 덴버 드비기 아니 유드체. 되네 덴버 드비 유드텔라 아니 덴버 드비 가서로 일로 원세도 하왔다나 안 되지서 대화제 온나 아니 대화들라 되차 근데 되차도 깨쳐비 주고라 아니 아주 마스네 다 동의제석이 시들아 차레스
so in terms of but if we bring an object, an inherently existent object in our view, an inherently existent object, and then on the basis that inherently existent object inherently superimpose further qualities on it, and then the feeling of happiness, positive qualities in this case, and then the feeling of happiness arises after that, and then attachment comes, through that process, we've built our basis for then suffering to arise.
So now, lunch break is now, right? So when now you have a lunch, try to eat without less attachment. So go through the process.
You've spoiled their lunch.
You might spoil the lunch. Okay. So see you after the break.